The last slave the market was loud with the sound of shouts, chains, and cruel laughter. Dozens of cages lined the dusty street, each cage holding an alien prisoner with hopeless eyes. Traders barked prices while rich buyers smirked as if lives were nothing more than toys. At the end of the row, in the smallest cage, sat the last one to be sold, that Dayan alien girl with thin arms and a trembling body. Her skin was pale, her eyes large and filled with fear. She hugged her knees and pressed herself into the corner, trying to make herself invisible. She had seen what happened to the others. She had heard the cries of girls dragged away, the begging, the pain, the silence that followed. She knew what was coming for her: torture, humiliation, maybe worse. The auctioneer's voice was sharp. The final one. She may not look strong, but she's young, obedient enough. If you break her, who will start the bidding? His words made the crowd laugh. Some men shouted cruel jokes. Others licked their lips as if they were choosing a meal. The girl shut her eyes, her heart beating like a drum. Then, through the noise, one voice spoke. It was calm, steady, not cruel. "I'll take her." The crowd went silent for a moment, heads turned. The one who had spoken was a middle-aged human man. His clothes were plain, his hair streaked with gray. His eyes did not shine with hunger or malice. He simply raised his hand, his expression unreadable. The auctioneer blinked, then laughed. "Sold." To the human. The crowd murmured, surprised. Some whispered that humans liked strange things. Others joked that the girl's suffering would be long and terrible now. The keys clinked as the trader unlocked the cage. His rough hand yanked her out. She stumbled forward, her legs weak. She dared not resist. Resistance only brought pain. She kept her head down, waiting for the whip, waiting for chains around her neck. But none came. Instead, the human simply gestured for her to follow. His voice was low. "Come." Her body shook. She thought, "This is how it begins. He will take me somewhere dark. He will hurt me. He will enjoy my screams." Her steps were heavy. Each pace was like walking deeper into a nightmare. The market faded behind her, replaced by quiet streets. The people they passed stared, some with pity, some with cruel amusement. To them, she was still nothing. The human said nothing. He did not pull her. He did not strike her. He only walked ahead slowly, making sure she could keep up. His silence made her fear even more. Monsters often hid behind calm faces, she remembered. Every story whispered in the cages. Humans were dangerous. Humans were clever. Humans could be worse than any master as they left the market far behind. The girl dared a glance at him. His face looked tired, lined with age and sorrow. There was no cruel smile, no hungry eyes, just a man walking quietly. She quickly looked away. Convinced it was a trick, she told herself not to believe, not to hope. Hope was the sharpest blade. It cut the deepest when taken away. When they reached a small transport, the man opened the door and nodded for her to enter. Her heart raced. She stepped inside. Her hands shook as she sat in the corner, hugging her knees again, waiting, always waiting for pain to come. The man sat at the front, starting the engine. He did not even look at her. The cage was gone, yet she felt no freedom, only fear, only questions. Why had this man bought her? Why had he spoken with such calm? What did he plan to do with her? As the vehicle moved away from the city, the alien girl pressed her forehead against the glass and whispered to herself, "It begins now." Her eyes filled with tears. She believed she had been bought for torment. She believed she was walking into the darkest fate of her life. But outside the window, the sun broke through the clouds, lighting the path ahead, and though she did not yet know it, her life was about to change forever. Her dark fears, the transport rumbled softly as it rolled down the dirt road. Inside, the alien girl sat curled in the corner. her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her eyes stayed wide and unblinking, fixed on the human man who sat quietly at the controls. He did not speak, he did not turn. The silence was worse than shouting. Worse than whips, it left her imagination free to twist and burn. Her mind dragged her back to the market, to the voices of the other slaves whispering warnings in the dark. Humans like to play with their captives. One had said, "They smile before they break you." Another had whispered, "The girl had believed every word." Now those whispers screamed louder in her head than the engine itself. She stared at the man's back, trying to read him. His shoulders were broad but not cruel. His head tilted slightly, as if weighed down by invisible chains. But she did not believe appearances. Monsters often wore soft masks, she thought. He is pretending. He wants me to lower my guard. Her heart hammered in her chest. The road outside passed through open fields, green and golden under the sun. It should have looked peaceful, but to her, every shadow was a warning, every sound a threat. She pressed herself harder against the wall of the transport. Her breathing came fast, shallow. She thought of running when they stopped. She thought of biting his hand if he tried to chain her. She thought of fighting until her last breath. But deep down, she knew she was too weak. She had been starved. For weeks, her legs shook when she stood. Her arms carried no strength. Even if she ran, she would be caught, and then the punishment would be worse. The man glanced at her in the mirror for a moment. His eyes met hers, calm, unreadable. She froze, expecting anger. Instead, he only turned his gaze back to the road. Her skin crawled. She whispered to herself, "Why won't he speak? Why won't he strike? What is he waiting for?" The silence felt like a trap when the vehicle finally stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. The human stepped out, opened the side door, and gestured for her to follow. She trembled but obeyed. Every step outside felt like walking closer. To the blade ahead stood a small house, simple, with wooden walls and a garden that smelled of fresh earth. It was nothing like the cages, nothing like the dungeons she had imagined. But that only made her heart beat faster. A soft place hides sharp knives. She thought. Her eyes darted around, looking for shackles, chains, whips, anything that would reveal the truth. The man pushed the door open and stepped aside for her to enter. She hesitated, her feet frozen. She thought, "If I go inside, I will never come out." But his eyes met hers, not with fire, not with hunger, only quiet patience, slowly shaking. She stepped inside. The air smelled of cooked food. Warmth spread through the room. The girl's stomach growled painfully. But she forced herself not to show it. Hunger could be used as a weapon. Many masters had fed their slaves only to make them easier to control. She whispered in her mind, "Do not eat, do not trust." The human placed a bowl on the table, steaming with fresh bread and stew. Then he moved to the other side of the room and sat down without a word. He did not force her. He did not demand she kneel or beg. He only waited. The girl stood frozen. Her body screamed for food. Her mind screamed for caution. She looked at the bowl, then at him, then back at the bowl. Slowly, she edged forward. Her hands shook as she touched the bread. She sniffed it, ready to throw it away if it smelled of poison, but it smelled only of wheat and warmth. Her fear was louder than her hunger. She put the bread down, stepped back. Her voice cracked as she finally spoke. "What do you want from me?" The man lifted his head. His eyes were tired. "Calm. Nothing," he said. The words struck her like lightning. Nothing. That was impossible. No master wanted nothing. No man bought a slave for nothing. She stared at him, her lips trembling. Her fear only grew stronger, because if he truly wanted nothing, then who was he? The unexpected homed alien girl stood frozen by the door. Her body leaned slightly forward, ready to run if he made a sudden move. The human man had given her food, But she had not eaten. Fear still wrapped around her like chains. She expected tricks. She expected pain hidden in patience. The man rose from his chair slowly. Not rushing, not threatening. He picked up the bowl and placed it gently back on the table. Then he walked toward another room. His footsteps were heavy but calm. He opened a door, revealing a small space with a bed, clean sheets, and a folded blanket. He stepped aside. "This is yours," he said. His voice was rough but not unkind. The girl stared, confused. The words felt wrong in her ears. Yours? No slave had anything of their own. Everything was taken. Everything belonged to the master. She shook her head, whispering, "No? It's a trick. It must be." Still, he waited. His eyes did not leave hers. They were not sharp with cruelty, only tired. She stepped inside slowly. Her hand touched the blanket. Soft and warm, her throat tightened. Memories of sleeping on cold. Stone in the cages rushed back. Her body wanted to fall into the bed, to disappear into comfort. But her mind screamed again. "Don't trust it. He wants you to believe. He wants you weak." The man left her there, closing the door gently behind him. He did not lock it. He did not shout. The silence was strange. Too strange. She sat on the bed, hugging her knees, staring at the door. Waiting for it to burst open. Hours passed. The house was quiet. She heard the faint sound of footsteps in the other room, the creak of a chair, the soft crackle of fire. Her stomach ached. Her throat was dry. Finally, unable to resist, she crept back into the main room. The man sat at the table, eating from another bowl. He looked up, but did not speak. He only gestured toward the untouched food he had left for her. Her body trembled. Her hands shook as she picked up the bread again. This time, hunger won. She tore off a piece, placed it in her mouth. The taste was rich and real. She ate quickly, each bite a battle between relief and suspicion. The man did not stop her. He did not laugh. He only watched quietly when she finished. She pushed the bowl away and waited, waiting for his smile to turn cruel. Waiting for the punishment to come for daring to eat, but none came. Instead, he stood and said softly, "Rest, you'll need strength." Then he walked back to his chair, leaning against it as if carrying a weight heavier than hers. That night, lying in the bed he had given, she could not close her eyes. The softness of the sheets felt dangerous. She kept whispering, "Why? Why is he doing this?" Fear was still stronger than comfort, but a tiny spark inside her whispered another word: hope. She crushed it quickly, refusing to let it grow. Hope was poison, she reminded herself, yet the memory of his eyes stayed. With her, they were not the eyes of a torturer, not the eyes of a cruel master. They were the eyes of a man who had lost something long ago. The thought made her chest ache. She turned her face into the pillow, tears slipping down her cheeks for the first time in years. Her tears were not from pain, but from confusion. Morning came, light spilled through the window. She woke to the smell of bread again. Her body wanted to believe. Her mind fought it. She rose slowly. Stepping into the main room, the man was there. Already setting food on the table, he looked up at her and said only 2 words. "Sit, eat." His voice held no command, only quiet care. The alien girl lowered herself into the chair. Her hands shook. Her fear had not gone, but something else stirred now, a question she had no answer for. What kind of master gives a slave a home? First kindness. The alien girl sat at the wooden table. Her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her stomach growled loudly. Betraying the hunger she tried to hide, the human placed a plate in front of her. Bread still warm, steam rising from a bowl of stew beside it. He did not force the food into her hands. He simply set it down and walked away, taking his own seat across the room. She stared at the meal as if it were a trap. In her life as a slave, food had always come with a price. Eat too much, and you were beaten. Refuse to eat, and you were punished. Masters enjoyed using hunger to break their captives. Her chest rose and fell quickly. She whispered to herself, "Don't trust it, don't trust him." Yet the smell wrapped around her like invisible hands, pulling her closer. Her lips trembled. Her stomach twisted with pain. Finally, with shaking fingers, she picked up the bread. She lifted it to her nose and sniffed. Nothing strange, only warmth. Still she hesitated. Her eyes darted to the human. He wasn't even watching her. He sat with his head lowered, eating his own food slowly. The silence stretched long. Then hunger snapped her fear. She bit into the bread. The taste was real. She chewed quickly, swallowing hard. Her body reacted before her mind could stop it. She reached for more, dipping it into the stew. The flavors filled her mouth. Her hands trembled as she ate faster. Almost desperate, the man raised his eyes once. Only for a moment, he gave a small nod, not of control, but of quiet approval. Then he looked away. His silence was strange. It was not the silence of cruelty, but of respect. When the bowl was empty, she leaned back, her chest heaving. She expected laughter. She expected him to sneer. "Look how easy you are to control." But no words came. Instead, he spoke softly. "Good, you needed that." Her breath caught. No master had ever spoken like that. No master cared if she ate. For a moment, she forgot to be afraid. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She lowered her head quickly, not wanting him to see the confusion in her eyes. Later, he brought her clothes, clean and folded. Simple fabric, but whole, not rags. He placed them at the foot of her bed and stepped back. "These are yours now," he said. Again, that word, yours. It cut into her like light into darkness. She picked up the fabric. Holding it against her chest, her throat tightened. She remembered how her old masters tore clothes from her body, leaving her cold and ashamed. These were not gifts, they were tools of torment. But now, here in this quiet home, the clothes smelled of soap and safety. When night fell, she lay on the bed, wearing the new clothes. Her body relaxed against the soft blanket. Her mind, however, raced. Why? Why is he doing this? What does he want? Fear still sat inside her, sharp and heavy. But there was another feeling now. Fragile and dangerous hope. She turned her face into the pillow, her voice no louder than a breath. "What kind of human are you?" She whispered the question. Had no answer yet. Outside the room, the man sat by the fire. His face was lined with sorrow. His hand rested on a worn picture frame he kept beside him. In it was the image of a girl with bright eyes. A daughter he had lost long ago. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Rest easy." His voice was almost broken. The alien girl could not hear him, but one day she would understand. That night, she slept deeply for the first time in years. And though she did not yet know it, the first seed of trust had been planted. Trust tested the days passed slowly in the human's house. The alien girl lived in constant fear, even as her body grew stronger from food and rest. She told herself again and again, "Do not believe him, do not trust him." Yet each time she woke, to find herself free of chains, each time she saw clothes folded neatly on her bed. The sharp edge of fear dulled, just a little. Still, she could not accept it fully. She waited for the moment the mask would fall. She waited for the cruelty to show. So when she stepped outside one morning, she thought only of escape. Her heart pounded. Her legs shook, but she told herself she would rather die running than live waiting. The road stretched quiet and empty. She took one step, then another. Her breath came faster. The sun warmed her face. For a brief moment, she almost believed she could make it. But shadows moved ahead, to guards from the old market. Their eyes lit up when they saw her. "There you are," one sneered. Thought you could slip away, slave." The other raised his weapon, pointing it toward her chest. Terror froze her legs. She could not even scream. Then, behind her footsteps, the human had followed. His voice was calm, but sharp as he stepped between her and the guards. "She's not going anywhere with you?" The guards laughed cruelly. "She's property, human. We'll take her back. You can buy another." The man did not move aside. He spread his arms slightly, shielding her. The girl trembled. Her mind spun in. Confusion. Why? Why would he stand there? Why would he risk himself for me? One guard lunged forward. A shot cracked through the air. The human shoved the girl back, the blast missing her by inches. Pain ripped across his arm as a second strike grazed him. Blood ran down his sleeve, but he did not fall. He did not run. His voice thundered now. "You will not take her." The girl's breath caught. Her heart screamed inside her chest. She had never seen anyone fight for a slave. Never. Masters fought over slaves. Not for them. Yet here he was, bleeding, standing like a wall in front of her. The guards cursed and retreated, realizing the fight was not worth the risk. Their voices echoed as they vanished. "You'll regret this, human." The road grew silent again. Only the sound of his heavy breathing remained. The girl's knees gave out. She fell, too. The ground, her eyes wide, her whole body shaking. She whispered, "Why? Why did you do that?" Her voice was broken, confused, afraid. The man looked down at his bloody arm, then at her. His face was pale with pain, but his voice was steady, "Because you don't belong to them." She could not speak. She stared at him as if seeing him. For the first time, her fear and mistrust tangled with something new, something dangerous hope. He helped her to her feet with his good hand. His touch was gentle, not forceful. For the first time, she did not pull away. He guided her back to the house, step by step, bleeding all the way. She wanted to protest, to say she was not worth the pain, but no words came, only silence inside. She tore strips of cloth to wrap his wound. Her hands shook as she worked. Her eyes burned with tears she did not want him to see. "He bled for me," she thought. "No master has ever done this." That night, as he rested in the chair by the fire, she sat on the floor near him, her body still tense, her heart still racing, but her eyes never left him. And for the first time since her life began in chains, she whispered to herself, "Maybe he isn't like the others." The walls begin to break. The fire burned low in the hearth. Casting soft light across the small room, the human sat in his chair, his injured arm wrapped in cloth, his face pale with exhaustion. The alien girl sat on the floor near him, hugging her knees. Her eyes never left him. She could not stop staring at the blood that had stained his sleeve earlier. It was his blood, shed because of her. She had seen many people bleed before, but never for her sake. Masters never cared if a slave was hurt. They only cared if property was damaged. Yet this man had stepped into the path of weapons to shield her. His pain was proof. His wound was proof. Something inside her chest stirred something dangerous. When she had first come here, she believed he was waiting for the right moment to reveal his cruelty. But tonight, as she saw his tired face soften with sleep, her doubts began to shake. She whispered under her breath, "Why would you do this? Why?" The next morning, she found him already awake, trying to lift wood with his injured arm. He winced, but did not stop. Instinct moved her before her mind could argue. She rushed forward, grabbing the log. "Let me," she said softly. He looked at her with surprise, but handed it over. She placed it by the fire, her hands trembling. She had helped him. Not out of fear, but out of choice. That realization made her heart beat faster. Later, while he rested, she sat by the window. Watching the world outside, freedom stretched beyond the horizon, yet she did not run. She touched the blanket he had given her. Soft under her fingers, her chest ached with confusion. She thought, if I run, he might bleed again to protect me. If I stay, I might find out who he really is. Both choices terrified her that evening. As the fire warmed the room, she finally spoke to him. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you let them take me back?" His eyes lifted to hers, calm but filled with something deep. His reply was simple. "Because you deserve better." The words struck her harder than any chain. No one had ever said she deserved anything. For so long she had been told she was worthless, a tool, a thing to be used. Now here was a human saying she deserved better. Her eyes filled with tears, she turned away quickly, hiding her face. The days after that were different. She still kept her distance, still flinched when he moved too quickly. But her heart was no longer blind. She noticed how he always placed her food first before his own. She noticed how he spoke gently, never raising his voice. She noticed how he gave her space, never forcing her to do anything. Each kindness was a small crack in the wall she had built around her heart. Each act of patience chipped away at the fear. And though she still whispered warnings to herself, at night, do not trust, do not hope, another voice had begun to whisper louder, maybe he is different. One night, as the fire flickered, she dared to sit in the chair across from him, not on the floor, her hands twisted nervously in her lap. But she held her ground. He glanced at her, then gave a small nod of approval. No. Words were spoken, but she felt them anyway. You belong here, not in chains. For the first time in her life, she felt the walls around her begin to break. And though fear still lingered, it no longer ruled her completely in its place. A fragile seed of trust began to grow. Secrets revealed the alien girl sat across from the human at the wooden table. The fire crackled behind them, filling the silence with warmth. Days had passed since the attack on the road. And still, she could not forget the sight of him bleeding. She wanted answers. Her heart was restless. Her mind would not let her sleep that night. She finally found the courage. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Why? Why do you care if I live or die?" Her eyes searched his face, hoping for truth, fearing lies. The human's fork paused halfway to his mouth. For a long moment, he did not answer. Then he set it down slowly. His tired eyes lifted to meet hers. In that silence, she saw something heavy, something hidden for years. He leaned back in his chair, his voice rough. "I once had a daughter." The words were soft, but sharp. Like a blade wrapped in cloth, the girl's breath caught. She did not move. She was young, full of life, he continued. She laughed every morning. She lit up the whole house. Then the sickness came. The doctors tried, I tried, but she slipped away. His voice cracked, just slightly, but he forced himself to go on. Hibernia, beneath the old tree in the back. Since that day, this house has been quiet. The girl's hands clenched around the edge of the table. She felt the sorrow in his words pressed down on her chest. She whispered, "So, you bought me because I remind you of her." He shook his head slowly. "No, I bought you because no one else would, because I could not watch them take another life and break it. I did not save you to replace her. I saved you because no one deserves what they would have done." Her throat tightened. The truth in his eyes shattered the last pieces of doubt. His pain was real. His kindness was not a mask. Her walls crumbled faster than she could rebuild them. She turned away, blinking hard, trying to hide the tears rising in her eyes. The room felt heavy with silence. Yet it was not the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of two souls carrying scars. The girl's voice was small, trembling. "I don't know how to live without chains. I don't know how to believe this is real." The human's voice softened. "Then let me show you, day by day." Something inside her cracked open. She pressed her hand against her chest, as if trying to hold her heart together. For years, she had been told she was worthless. For years. Her life was nothing but commands and punishment. And now here was someone telling her she was worth saving, worth protecting. That night, as she lay in her bed, she remembered his words again and again. Because no one deserves what they would have done, she curled under the blanket, her body shaking not from fear, but from something new, relief. The next morning, she walked into the main room without hesitation. For the first time, she greeted him with her eyes, not lowering her head like a slave. He looked up from his work, and their gazes met. She felt her heart stumble. He gave a small smile, the kind a father might give. Not an owner, her fear was not gone, but it no longer ruled her. For the first time in her life, she had seen someone's pain and shared it. For the first time, she realized she was not alone. When the masters returned the days after his secret were different. The alien girl no longer hid in the corner. She no longer flinched every time he moved. She still carried fear inside, but it was softer now. It no longer crushed her chest. Instead, there was space for something new, trust, fragile and uncertain. But peace is a fragile thing. It never lasts long. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, the sound of heavy boots echoed outside. The girl froze by the window. Her breath caught in her throat. Shadows moved at the edge of the path, voices rough and cruel. She recognized them instantly. The masters, the traitors, the ones who had owned her. Her body trembled. Her mind screamed. They found me. They came back. Panic spread through her veins like fire. She stumbled back from the window, her hands clutching her chest. "They're here," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They've come for me." The human stood from his chair, his eyes narrowing. He moved to the door calmly, but his jaw was set hard. Outside, the voices grew louder. "We know you've got her, human," one of them shouted. "She's our property. Return her, and we might let you live." The girl's knees buckled. She fell to the floor. Her hands covered her ears. She could not breathe. Every word dragged her back to the cage, back to the whip, back to the endless nights of screams. She whispered, "They'll take me. They'll drag me away." But then she heard his voice, steady, strong, like iron, over my dead body. The door shook as fists pounded against it. The human turned to her quickly. His eyes locked on hers. "Stay behind me," he said. His voice was not harsh, but commanding with care. She shook her head, tears streaming. "You don't understand. They'll kill you. They'll then let them try." He cut her off. His tone was final. The door burst open, and 3 men stormed inside. Their eyes burned with greed. Weapons gleamed in their hands. "Step aside," one growled. "She belongs to us." The girl crawled back, her heart racing. She could already feel their rough hands pulling her away, but the human stepped forward. Standing between her and them, his presence was a wall. He did not move. Even as they raised their weapons, one of the men sneered, "You think you can fight us for a slave?" The human's voice shook the room. "She is not a slave." The words hit her like lightning. Her body froze. Her breath caught. Never in her life had she heard those words spoken for her. Not once. The traitors laughed, cruel and sharp. Not a slave. "Then what is she?" "Your pet. Your toy. You can't change what she is." The man's voice thundered louder. "I can, because I choose to. She is free." The girl's tears fell harder. Her chest ached. Her mind could not hold the weight of it. Free. The word felt impossible, yet he had spoken it as truth. The men lunged. Chaos filled the room. The human grabbed a chair and swung it. Blocking a strike, he shoved one back. His injured arm straining. The girl screamed, fear tearing through her throat. She wanted to hide. But something inside her sparked something stronger than fear. Her eyes darted to the fireplace, to the iron rod resting beside it. Her hands moved before her thoughts could stop them. She grabbed the rod, her fingers burning from the heat, and for the first time, she fought. She swung it wildly at the traitor closest to her. The man howled in pain, stumbling back. The room exploded with noise, shouts, the crash of wood, the hiss of fire, and through it all, the human's voice roared like thunder. "She is not yours." The choice of the room shook with violence. The wooden table had toppled. The fire snapped in the hearth. The alien girl clutched the iron rod with both hands, her chest heaving. The traitor she struck stumbled back. Tia, clutching his burned arm. Fury burning in his eyes, the human fought with everything he had. His injured arm slowed him, but his will was unshaken. He blocked, shoved, and struck. His body moved not for himself, but for her. Every blow he took, every wound he risked, was for the girl who once thought she was worthless. She stood frozen for a heartbeat, her breath ragged, fear screamed inside her. Hide, obey, stay small, but another voice had risen. Stronger now. Fight, stand, choose. The largest of the traitors grabbed the man by the collar, slamming him against the wall. The human grunted in pain. His strength began to falter. The girl's heart cracked. She saw him bleeding, struggling, fighting alone. And something inside her broke wide open. Her legs moved before her mind could stop them. She rushed forward, swinging the iron rod with all the strength her thin arms carried. It struck the traitor's side with a dull thud. He roared and staggered. Loosening his grip on the man, the human shoved him away, gasping for breath. The girl's hands trembled, her body weak, but her eyes burned with the fire she had never known. She shouted, her voice raw. "I'm not your slave anymore." The sound shocked even herself. It was the first time she had ever spoken such words. The traitors cursed, retreating slightly. One of them spat, "You'll regret this, girl. You'll regret choosing him." But her hands did not lower. She stood beside the human now, shoulder to shoulder, trembling yet unbroken. The human looked at her, his eyes wide with something between pride and sorrow. "You don't have to," he whispered. But she shook her head fiercely. "Yes, I do." In that moment, the choice was clear. She could run and leave him to fight alone. She could let herself be dragged back into chains, or she could stand and fight. Even if her body failed, she chose. And her choice was freedom. Together, they pushed back. The man's strength and her desperate courage combined. The traitors faltered, realizing the fight was no longer easy prey. Their threats turned to curses, their curses to retreat. One by one, they stumbled out into the night, promising revenge. The door slammed behind them, leaving only silence. The girl dropped the iron rod, her arms shaking, her chest heaved as she fell to her knees. Tears poured down her face. Not from fear, but from the weight of what she had done. She had fought, she had chosen, for the first time in her life. She had taken her fate in her own hands. The human knelt beside her, his good hand resting gently on her shoulder. His voice was soft, steady. "You didn't have to fight, but you did." She looked up at him through her tears, whispering, "Because you fought for me first." The words hung in the air, heavy, true, for a long moment. Neither spoke. The fire crackled softly, filling the silence. Her hands clutched his sleeve, stained with blood, and though her body trembled, her eyes no longer held only fear. They held strength. They held choice. That night, as she lay in her bed, she stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. Her heart pounded not from terror, but from something different. She had stood with him. She had claimed her freedom. The choice had been made, and no one could take it back. A new beginning. The night was silent after the traitors fled. The door hung broken. The room smelled of smoke and blood. The alien girl sat on the floor, her chest rising and falling quickly. Her hands still trembled, but inside her heart, something had changed for the first time. She had fought for herself for the first time. She had stood by someone instead of shrinking away. The human leaned against the wall, his face pale. His wounded arm bled slowly through the cloth, yet his eyes held calm strength. He looked at her, not as a master looks at property, but as a man looks at someone equal. His voice was rough, tired, but gentle. "It's over for now." The girl shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "No, it's never over. They'll come back. They'll never stop." Her voice cracked, fear returning. But the man knelt beside her, his good hand resting on her shoulder. "Then we'll face them. Together." The word struck her. Together. No one had ever stood with her before. No one had ever said she was not alone. Her body shook harder. But this time from something she did not understand: hope. Fragile, but real. Days passed. The broken door was repaired. The house slowly returned to quiet. Yet it was not the same silence as before. Now it carried the sound of two voices, sometimes soft, sometimes uncertain. The girl began to speak more. Small words at first, then questions, then laughter. Weak, but true. She helped him in the garden, her hands learning the feel of soil instead of chains. She helped cook, though she burned the bread more often than not. He never shouted, only chuckled and said, "We'll try again." Each mistake was not punishment, but learning. Each day was not survival, but living. One evening, as the sun painted the sky orange, the girl stood outside by the tree he had once mentioned. She looked at the ground where he said his daughter rested. Her throat tightened. She whispered softly, "I'm sorry you lost her." The human stood beside her, silent, his eyes heavy with memories. She placed a hand on the tree, her voice trembling, "But I will honor her. I will live. I won't let your kindness be wasted." He turned to her then, his eyes glistening. For a long moment, they said nothing. The wind moved through the branches above them, carrying their silence like a promise. That night, she sat by the fire, her eyes watching the flames dance. She thought of the market, the cage, the endless fear, and then she thought of the man beside her, the house, the bed, the food freely given. The difference was like night and day. She whispered to herself, "I am not a slave anymore." The words felt strange, but they also felt true. The human looked over at her, hearing the whisper. His face softened. He spoke firmly, but gently. "No, you're not. You're home now." Her heart clenched. Her eyes filled with tears. She pressed her face into her hands, letting them fall freely. For the first time, they were not tears of fear or pain. They were tears of release, of freedom, of something she had never believed possible. When she lifted her head, she smiled faintly, a fragile, uncertain smile. But it was real, and he smiled back, tired but warm. The house was still small. The world still dangerous. The traitors might one day return, but the girl knew her life had changed forever. She had made her choice. She had found her freedom. And beside the human who saved her, she had found something even greater: family.